What hasn't been said about the common warrior? Are they really as simple as people assume? Surely a playstyle that puts all its faith in a single tool, raw strength, pure martial skill, couldn't possibly capture the imagination of so many people across so many different stories and worlds. And yet, the Master of Arms, more commonly known simply as the Warrior, remains one of the most consistently beloved archetypes in fiction and one of the most chosen classes in gaming. We won't be exploring the Guardian or the Protector here. We will explore what the warriors are as such, what they represent, what they demand, and what they reveal. Risk-takers, leaders, mercenaries that defy every expectation placed upon them. The part of the warrior story that tends to get forgotten is this. In any medieval or futuristic fantasy setting, this style of combat doesn't merely survive alongside magic and technological advancement. It thrives despite them. It refuses to become obsolete. In any well-written fantasy, warriors are explorers, soldiers of fortune, mercenaries with an appetite for discovery, and an honest relationship with the thrill of the combat. Their path doesn't come with the casual elegance of a wizard who reshapes reality with a gesture, or the detached precision of a futuristic engineer whose greatest weapon might never leave its holster. Warriors are always ready, always a step closer to the fight than anyone else in the room. And they bring that with them everywhere. Not just onto the battlefield, but into every conversation, every decision, every relationship. The combat mindset doesn't switch off. For better or worse, it's who they are. To quote Miyamoto Musashi, perhaps the most complete warrior in recorded history, the primary thing when you take a sword in your hands is your intention to cut the enemy, whatever the means. Pure, uncompromising, total commitment to the task at hand. And yet, Musashi himself was the first to argue that a warrior who knew only the sword was incomplete. For him, martial discipline wasn't meant to replace life, it was meant to illuminate it. To sharpen not just the blade, but the mind behind it. He was a painter, a sculptor, a writer. A man whose understanding of combat ran so deep that it became a lens through which he saw everything else with extraordinary clarity. The sword was the method, not the destination. The core idea of the warrior is deceptively simple. Excel at wielding one weapon or a focused set of weapons. On paper, that sounds limiting. A warlock's arsenal of spells, a hunter's technological precision. Surely those offer more. But the warrior's answer is adaptation through depth rather than different options. Fewer tools understood completely, almost as an extension of oneself. Bruce Lee put it best. I do not fear the man who has practiced 4,000 different kick moves every day. I fear the man who has practiced one kick move 4,000 times. Psychology backs this up. When faced with too many choices, we freeze, paralysis by analysis. The warrior mindset sidesteps that problem entirely. There is a quiet confidence, even a comfort, in knowing your weapons completely regardless of how they might look to an opponent or how mismatched they seem to the situation at hand. And that perceived mismatch, smart warriors use that. Unlike the long theatrical exchanges of movie fights, villains monologuing, heroes rallying, real confrontation offers almost no margin for error. Impressions are formed in seconds. Reactions are instinctive. Warriors understand this window better than anyone, and they learn to create opportunities within it, not through intimidation or grand gestures, but through being consistently underestimated. The hidden dagger, the discarded weapon that was never the real weapon. The blade that appears from nowhere while your opponent is still processing what they thought they saw. These aren't tricks, they are the warrior's philosophy made physical. Control what your opponent believes, and you control the fight before it begins. What does it say about a person who consistently picks the master of arms in any given game? Perhaps nothing. Perhaps it really is just the design, the aesthetic, the fantasy, the simplicity of the archetype and the ease of its execution. But perhaps, just perhaps, it says something more specific about a certain kind of mindset. One that doesn't see the world as a problem with a clever solution waiting to be unlocked. One that would rather master fewer things completely and have more left over. More focus, more presence, more resources. To actually act in the world rather than endlessly preparing to act. That mindset shows up in fiction too, and not just in heroes. One of the recurring patterns in medieval fantasy is that the antagonist, the corrupt nobleman, the warlord, the powerful leader gone wrong, almost always knows how to handle a weapon. This isn't done purely for tension, though it does create it. It makes complete sense. An adversary who is evil for evil's sake never truly earns their weight in the eyes of the audience. What elevates them is the implication that they have been tested, that they know somewhere underneath the cruelty and the power that they can lose. It is a story within a story, because a genuine mastery of any martial skill doesn't just mean years of practice. It means years of being wrong, years of being corrected, by teachers, by opponents, by reality itself. Think about it. A young nobleman's son rides through the countryside, and what does he find? Bowed heads. Obedience. Everyone stepping aside. And most of the time, that's exactly what happens. But every once in a while, that bravado gets met by someone who isn't paying attention to titles. A genuinely dangerous individual who gives him a taste of his own medicine. Or a local drunkard with nothing to lose and no reason to care who his father is. People living at the edges of the system, completely unbothered by lords and their offspring. That's what makes a nobleman who can actually fight genuinely menacing. Not the wealth, not the title. The fact that somewhere along the way, someone outside the system already tried to take him apart, and he learned from it. The reason warriors tend to make exceptional combat leaders is precisely because of what never leaves them. That constant low hum of combat awareness, always running in the background. To an experienced warrior leading a group, it doesn't matter whether the person beside them wields magic or a blade. What matters is placement. Fit, function, are they a ranged threat or a close quarters fighter? Do we have healers, and who needs protecting long enough to be effective? Who in this group is the highest threat to our enemies? And who needs space and time to become that threat? Who guards whom? These aren't questions that require genius. They require clarity. And clarity is exactly what a warrior who has stopped doubting their own weapon has in abundance. When you have already settled the question of your own capability, you stop spending energy on it. That energy goes somewhere else. It goes outward, toward the group, toward the terrain, toward the shape of the fight before it begins. The master of arms who has truly mastered their style isn't just free to fight. They are free to think, and that freedom is what turns a skilled fighter into something rarer, a leader worth following into the worst of it. Sparta deserves a mention here. and perhaps more credit than it typically receives. When people discuss Spartan culture, the conversation usually defaults to its militarism, its brutality, its apparent narrowness of vision. What gets overlooked is that Athens, the city we hold up as the cradle of democracy and philosophical thought, largely modeled its own state hierarchy on Spartan foundations. Lycurgus' system of governance was not just tolerated by Athenian thinkers, it was admired by them. The lesson isn't that military culture is beyond criticism. Any system of government can fall prey to corruption. The lesson is that discipline, structure, and the warrior ethos applied with genuine intelligence can produce something far more sophisticated than the outside world expects, which is precisely what gets forgotten when people underestimate the warriors and warrior leaders. But if warriors make such capable leaders, why are they just as often found leading bandit groups, cults, and organizations that operate somewhere between morally compromised and outright villainous? The answer lies in exactly what makes them formidable in the first place, and what they so often lack alongside it. Warriors, more than most archetypes, tend to operate without a concrete ideology anchoring them. Their discipline is real. Their capability is also real. But without a genuine moral framework, whether self-constructed, adopted through fate, or earned through hard experience, that discipline becomes a tool without a purpose. And a tool without a purpose will find one eventually, for better or for worse. This is why the philosophy a warrior chooses to follow, or allows to choose them, predicts their trajectory more completely than almost any other factor. Discipline tied to genuine conviction produces something extraordinary. Discipline tied to a corrupt belief system, a violent group, or simple absence of values produces something devastating. And the more skilled the warrior, the more devastating the result. The ceiling is high, but the floor has no bottom. And this isn't only true of warriors in fiction. It holds for any person who merges their profession and their value system together completely. The integration amplifies everything, the best and the worst of what they are. There is one particular warrior from the Diablo series that people tend to dismiss or outright dislike. From my perspective, without that figure, the entire series wouldn't exist. Not in one way, in a lot of ways. One thing is certain, as without said warrior, we wouldn't be mentioning Diablo series here at all. The dark side of warrior archetype usually arrives at the same destination, a hunger for battle that has long since passed the point of reason. Berserkers and warrior tribes that lean too deeply into their own primal nature tend to do the same thing to the culture around them, extinguish them. Art, philosophy, music, craft, anything that cannot be measured in combat effectiveness gets labeled as weakness and is eliminated. What looks like strength from the outside is more often fear wearing armor and weapon. Fear of the unknown, fear of value system where the only metric they understand, who can fight and who cannot, suddenly stops being enough. At the individual level, it plays out the same way. A warrior with no social development and no curiosity beyond combat finds themselves consistently outmatched the moment the battlefield becomes conversation, surrounded by words, concepts, and ways of thinking they have no tools for. The easiest response is to decide those things shouldn't exist at all. It is avoidance and instinctive impulse to bring back the fight to the only battlefield they know. To be fair, it is something that each one of us also gravitates to no matter what our specialty is. It is just that combat situation can get out of hand fast with warriors. Do you think that warriors are justified in how they act, or are they usually more trouble than worth? Let me know in the comments below, and I will talk to you in the next video. Until then, take care.